that we put in jail for non-violent, victimless crimes. I don't think that drugs are a good thing, but I don't think that we should just be locking people up. Because what I've seen from some friends, that when that happens, it's just a downward spiral, and as soon as they get out of jail, the only option that they know is to go right back into that cycle. And so I think the better path would be to help these people get off their addictions with community programs, keep them out of jail in the first place, and when they do come out, that we've got a job waiting for them, not just a parole officer who checks in with them every 6 months or when they get in trouble.
Ed Larson.
This is a very important issue, and I'm not the expert here on this, so I do want to share my concerns and thoughts that I have when talking to folks in Barre and around Barre about this. First, I don't think we should be releasing people before their sentence is over. We shouldn't increase that population prematurely. So I disagree with what Senator Shumlin was talking about. But I've talked to a lot of folks about this. How do we deal with this? We have a changing culture here in the city of Barre. Very different. It's obvious. The reasons are very obvious. The courthouse is here. The services are here. Transportation is difficult for these folks. So they're here. How do we deal with that? We do have increases in crime, drug use, and it's affecting our youth. So I'm very concerned about that. I think that while they're incarcerated, we can do a better job of trying to teach them values, workforce training, things like that, get in more prepared for when they are released. We should try to find ways to empower them to be good citizens. But that takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and it will take more resources. I do want to be tough on crime. I don't want to put up with this. Folks are causing crimes. We've got to lock them up again. And that's the way it's going to have to be. But you've got to find ways to deal with this. I share the concern of the person who brought that question forward and those folks who live here.
Well, I'm one of the many Vermonters that has two hometowns. I live in Plainfield and pay my taxes to Plainfield, but if I were a third-string pitcher for the Mountaineers, I'd be able to throw a baseball right over to Barre Town. I have a Barre Town, I have a Barre phone and a Barre address. And a few years ago, David Harrington pulled me over and asked me what town I was from. I'd say Barre because he'd look at my license and call me a liar if I said I was from Plainfield. No, I'm not a liar, excuse me. And I remember, I've lived here for about 40 years, and I remember when Barre was better shopping than Montpelier, a really vibrant town. And if I'm elected, I'm going to do everything I can to work with the state representatives here in Barre, my other colleagues in the Senate, to do everything I can to revitalize this town. There are too many empty stores, too many desperate people. Barre does have a problem because the courthouse is here and corrections are here. I spoke to the town manager here. The police have somewhere on the order of 30% more calls than they would in a comparable sized town because the courthouse is here and so many people have to come. We really need to help Barre and we really need to revitalize Barre. That'll be a top priority for me if I'm elected as your senator.
Bill Doyle.
People of Barre are willing to do their fair share, but there is a municipal overburden, and this adversely affects the quality of life. And when you adversely affect the quality of life, you adversely affect the economy. And so I would say that, and also say that Barre isn't alone. There are 11 courthouses in the state of Vermont where there's this municipal overburden. This legislation passed the House of Representatives who would speak to this question. And so it's not just Barre. It's 11 communities in Vermont have a municipal overburden and adverse quality of life. And I might say just a few days ago, Senator Luzzi, who chairs the Economic Development Committee, wrote a letter to Mayor Lozon and said that if he's still the chair of the Economic Development Committee, he would take the bill in his committee because it adversely affects the economy.
Anthony.
The way the question is phrased, I think that I agree with the gist of the question. I think that Barre, as we all know, I know that Barre is a community community that has a very rich history and a very strong sense of community. I think Barry is also a community that is sometimes taken for granted. And I think the people in Barry, the providers in Barry, the social service providers work overtime with limited resources to deal with the responsibilities they have because of the offenders that have been released into the community. I want to make it very, very clear, and I've made this very, very clear throughout the campaign to anyone who will listen, that I think it is wrong for the state of Vermont to push its expenses onto local communities and onto the backs of local property taxpayers. I want that to stop, and I think the example of Barry is a prime example. It's also can't be an isolated conversation. It's no coincidence that our prison population has soared while our economy has tanked, that the number of people going to prison goes up while wages and good jobs disappear. Those things are connected, and I think if we want to keep people out of prison, if we want to save money in prisons, we have to start investing more in communities and in good jobs for Vermonters. And I think we need to do a lot more to put our kids in college and a lot less to put them in prison. Throughout the last decade or so, we've increased our spending on prisons by over 100%. We've increased our investment in our state colleges by close to zero. So we have to turn around those priorities. Why do we have so many people in prison? Why do we have so many offenders coming out of prison? Because we've been investing in prisons when we should have been investing in ways to keep people out of prison. That's got to change. And Barry's got to stop shouldering that burden.
I just remind everybody that prison operations are 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. The K-12 education system is 185 days a year and about 7 hours a day. So the comparison between the cost of education and the cost of putting someone in prison is really disingenuous. That being said, I think it's absolutely shameful what's gone on in Berry City. I live in Berrytown. I spend a lot of time in Berry City. I've stopped walking downtown because I'm tired of getting panhandled for money. I'm tired of breaking up fights between gangs of kids. I'm tired of seeing people abusing disabled and elderly people on the street and having to break that up. It's disgusting what's gone on and what downtown Berry has turned into. And I agree with Anthony. The state of Vermont is absolutely wrong to be pushing this burden on the local municipalities. All they're doing is shifting the cost in the name of trying to show taxpayers that they're saving money over here, but all they're doing is shifting it over here. And so when the local municipalities need to spend more money on law enforcement, they're not spending money on the public library, they're not spending money on some of the social service things that needs to be done. We're pushing people out of prison right now because that's the popular thing to do, but they don't care that there's no housing available for these people. There is no housing available. There are no jobs for them to go to. I recently renovated a house in Berry City and employed one of these probationers who lives in Berry City, was out of jail, needed a job. We put him to work, and unfortunately, he's been in and out. And the last time he was in, the only thing that was keeping him from coming out is he didn't have an apartment to go to. Big problem. Thank you.
Andrew, as a former mayor, I absolutely agree that the state does not have a right to push its problems. And it's really a tax. You know, we don't want to raise taxes. When people are talking about we got to cut taxes, when you cut taxes, you have to cut services. And so there's this constant balance. How do we get housing? Barry, I remember when Barry was a vibrant downtown. I like to come here, but I couldn't go shopping in Montpelier. It's taken a lot of years for Barry to get into this downward spiral, and it's going to take some time to redevelop downtown, to get it going. I think the state needs to work cooperatively. I think we need to make investments, first of all, in drug and alcohol and substance abuse training, because that's what's getting an awful lot of our folks in jail, crimes related to that. If they don't get the treatment in jail, they come back to our communities, and they still have the issue, and they hang out, and they meet really nice people in jail so they can hang out with them too. And they do tend to cluster, just like teenagers, and they are clustering in Barry. I think part of what we have to do is get more non-criminals into Barry. Community Action is about to put a $150 million building and rehab a whole section of downtown and put all kinds of folks in here that will be able to eat and shop and work downtown. And I think we all need to work